Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the final meeting of the Racetech V8 ESC Sprint Series. Coming to you on ECA Racing TV, live from the tricky little Silverstone National Circuit. In the booth with me tonight, I have Mr. Pete Bingham.
Evening, everybody.
And also Mr. Bill Switzer.
Good evening, everybody.
And on the wheels of steel in the background, keeping quiet, is Mr. Sam Boozy. And that's how quiet he can be, just how we like it. So we have tonight rounds 31, 32, and 33. We are using the newly scanned version of Silverstone by iRacing. It was many, many years in the making. Pete, 21 points between Johnny Brandon and George McClay as we head into these final three rounds. What are you expecting from tonight?
I'm expecting lots and lots of door-to-door racing. I think it's going to be good through all the different turns you've got here at Silverstone. I know we're on the shorter track. I prefer the full-length track, but we are, as you said before the broadcast started, doing a sprint race, and therefore it'd be probably a bit impractical to do the full circuit. I think it's going to be very competitive. I think Tony's going to get in there and spoil everything. At some point, Gary Croft, George McClay, there's plenty of people in there that can provide a spoiler. I think it'll be very, very tasty, to be honest. I think we're in for a really good night's racing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. Bill, small circuit, 1.64 miles. Not too technical, but flat and not always a great deal of grip. With George and Johnny being so close at the top, is it going to be one mistake by either of them that's going to hand the championship to the other driver?
Well, I'm not sure about mistakes, but having a very flat circuit like it is, and as you mentioned, slick, it's more gated toward high downforce, big tired cars, and the V8 Supercar is neither of those, so it's going to have a heck of a time getting around these corners. It's going to be the guy that really can handle the conditions the best. Try to make as few mistakes as possible, and maybe even lean on each other a little bit if you have to. I kind of fashion it that it's going to be like a good old American short track race. I think there's going to be a little banging and bumping, which Pete mentioned, and I think it's going to be a gas. So it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, so we're currently 6 minutes into qualifying, there or thereabouts. Johnny Brandon is on pole position, and George McClay currently, I was just going to say he's down in fourth, and he's just popped himself third, but 0.3 of a second behind Johnny. So, again, the championship is really, really tight between these two. Do you expect other drivers to respect what's going on in the championship and leave these two to their own devices, or are we going to see the normal? I wouldn't say anything to take a win, but you're going to have to do something special to get by a Kloosterman or a Croft. What do you think, Pete?
I think the guys at the back, which is, hopefully they'll forgive me at some point in the future. I'm not bothered about right now. But like Vernon, Wiley, Andrew Hoffman, Michael Frost, I think they'll keep out of the way. They'll see that as not their fight, and they'll be racing themselves, all well and good. But they won't want to be like involved in the top end fight because they know what's going on. They're not silly. The guys at the top, Johnny, Tony, George, Gary, they're going to be just scything their way through, pretty much. Ronald Moons just put in a very nice time, by the way. I just thought I'd shout that out. In the middle field, I think when we do the reverse grids, there's going to be a bit of a want to stay in front of those guys and be involved. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the reverse grids, to be honest.
Yeah, I know Andrew Hoffman has already sent me a message to say that he's not qualifying and he's going to win it from the back. So, Bill, we've obviously got our usual format of a morning session with the qualifying. Then we've got a reverse grid and an afternoon session. And then the final race will be a reverse grid and a sunset session. So, will the reverse grids decide the championship?
Well, unless I really don't think so. I think Johnny and George and Tony's not in this fight, but he's included in this group. They're used to it. They come through the field pretty quickly. But then and again, if they're really concerned about winning the championship, they might be a little careful. They might have a tendency to make a move maybe they shouldn't make. So if that's the mistake they make, they're going to lose the championship. So it may be like walking on eggs. We don't know. We'll have to really wait and see. I'm more curious when the second race comes along, because the first race is going to be, race as usual. I think. I mean, we might have a dark horse there, but it's the usual guys. So, but if they get shoved in the back, it's going to be a big difference, and I'm just really curious to see how they handle it.
Yeah, and I suppose all the drivers out there, apart from obviously Johnny and George, they don't want to be that driver that costs somebody the championship. Is that a fair comment, Bill?
Oh, absolutely. And I think one thing we have in our favor at this league is generally it's very respectful of the other driver. I mean, you very seldom see any kind of nasty, putting somebody out on purpose. I mean, granted, tempers flare. We get a little excited from time to time, but it's a very respectful league, and I don't think we're going to see any craziness.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to race one with bated breath. Just to let everybody know, I'm going to update the scores, try and work everything out on a race-to-race basis. So at the moment, we've got Johnny Brandon leading George McClay by 21 points, and they're really the only two that are in it, unless they both have absolute disasters, which I can't see happening. But before race 3, I'll try and update you all with the scores. So I will hand over to Mr. Pete Bingham now, who will take you through today's race 1 starting grid.
Okay, so on pole, and anybody betting against Johnny would have been a bit silly here. It's Johnny Brandon. Next to him will be Tony Kloosterman. George McClay takes up the first position on row 2. Gary Croft is next to him. Justin Rebello is on row 3. Steve Lavallee are next to him. Ronald Moons is next to Lane O'Connor. David Ice is next to Vernon Wiley. Andrew Hoffman and Michael Frost make up the back of the grid. They haven't posted a time, so they're starting from the back voluntarily.
Yeah, like I say, I know Andrew has already told me he's not qualifying. Mike Frost, I'm a bit surprised. Yeah, Mike Frost, I'm a bit surprised about. He had a lot of pace at Road Atlanta. Not that I've got any pace at all, but he was hassling me for numerous laps. So I don't know whether Mike has found something in the car just before it changes. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing if he can do well here. So drivers are starting to line up.
If Michael keeps that up, he's going to be disqualified from this league, hassling you.
Yes, I do have a big band stick. So 12-car grid at the moment. Still waiting for a few to join.
Waiting for Johnny to join, I think.
Yeah, the front row's not there yet.
Mind games.
That's Gary Croft.
Oh yeah. Just remind myself that not to use the blimp on this track.
No, I don't know if it's just me, but does George look like he's facing an angle?
He definitely does.
And
I don't know how he's
Croft.
managed.
Look at Tony too. They're all angled on that side. Wow.
Just a weird iRacing thing. Revs are
Okay,
rising.
revs are up.
Ooh, that was
Away
a
we
strange.
go.
Whoa!
Somebody's spun out already at the
That was
back.
Vernon Wiley, I believe.
Johnny's wide in turn 1. And he's got it all under control. Tony slots into second and George third.
George is biding his time. He's got quite a gap to Tony at the moment, and Gary Croft's got the same gap behind him.
Yeah, and I
Everybody's
think
strung out
the
straight up.
other thing that might come into play tonight as well is the bonus points. So, there's 10 bonus points for a clean race.
That's true.
And it is a track where you can get clean races as well.
I just spotted a yellow car slow on the inside there. Johnny's still leading. Tony's still hassling him. I think George has closed up a little bit on Tony.
It's closed up a lot, actually. I'll be interested to see what happens on the first major straight.
Or maybe George is just letting Tony do his thing and maybe hoping that they tangle or slow each other down and an opportunist move into the lead, maybe.
Yeah, because the tyres aren't going to be a massive issue in a race like this, are they? I'm surprised that Tony's not drafting Johnny more than he is. The straights around Silverstone are quite lengthy and open. You think you'd be able to pull him in quite quickly.
Yeah, although something you do notice in this car, it's not really until you get up to top speed that draft comes in. So whether the straight is not quite long enough, I'm not sure.
Yeah, you're talking to someone who very rarely gets to top speed, so I wouldn't know about that.
Big lock up there by Tony.
I'm with you, Pete. Just a hacker's observation, but I think Johnny is a heck of a lot. Seems to be faster out of the corner, and Tony seems to corner a little bit. He's right on top of him all the time. So I don't know what to.
He definitely gets him in the braking zone.
Yeah, maybe Tony's chasing the corner a bit, and Johnny's just using that and accelerating away from him.
Look at this; he's closing right up on him.
Bit further back, we've got Justin Rebello in close quarters with Lane. They take very different lines through the corners, all of these drivers. Whether it's intentional or not at the moment with the cold tyres, I'm not sure. But Ronald Moon's slightly getting dropped off those.
Well, people are going to have to get used to cold tyres with the new car being confirmed for the next build with the new tyres on. We did have a chat a couple of weeks ago in the podcast about the new tyres, and Johnny was saying that, it's like driving on ice for a couple of laps. You've, really got to work the tyres and get the heat into them. So, yeah, going to be a learning curve for everybody, I think.
Yeah, and I think that'll be it'll be good for the V8 ESC league as well. I think it'll attract a whole lot of people. Ooh, Tony had a massive. I don't know whether you can replay that if your cameras weren't on it, Sam, but that was a big wig. And George has got him lined up.
Tony's got the front locked up. Wow.
He's struggling, isn't he?
A little bit.
Yeah, Justin has just done Lane in that battle that was further down the pack.
I knew there was something coming from that. What do we know of Justin?
I know he's Canadian, that's about it. and I believe there was a message on Discord to say that he'll be back next season, and he's got a teammate as well. So
Sounds
Terrific.
good and
he's
healthy.
obviously starting to enjoy himself.
That's great. Good.
So Johnny's got a bit of a gap now over Tony, and George is right on Tony's back bumper. So let's see if George can make a move on Tony's locking up again.
Same corner
Yeah.
every time. And George is on him again, but Tony pulls away from him through the rest of the lap, so it kind of like nulls itself.
And I have a feeling George would like to get by him to get a couple extra points too.
Yeah, I think Tony could do with a click or two of rearward bias.
Yeah, whatever it is, he'll correct it in the next race. Tony, do you know what the gap is between Johnny and Tony now?
What, in seconds?
Yeah,
Last lap it was 1.7.
I think it'll be more than that somehow. Johnny seems to be very, very smooth through all the corners. I mean, he must have done a whole bunch of laps through here over the year. Because this track obviously features on other racing sims as well.
Or at least all other racing sims.
Yeah, maybe that.
So across the line this time, 1.9 seconds.
Yeah. George doesn't seem to be capitalising on Tony's mistakes, although I think Tony's coming up to his own little corner of death at the moment, so we'll have to see what he does here. Oh no, I've got the wrong.
George is peeking here and there though, but you know, maybe he doesn't want to make a big mistake, go off the road and lose more points. We don't know.
Yeah, and I think where Tony is locking up and sort of running wide a bit, it's moving him onto the natural line for the next right-hander. So I think he's getting away with it. That was better. He was
that
on the curb there.
Yeah. Exactly.
Ronald seems to be approaching the back of Lane O'Connor's car. So whether Lane's moving backwards in that slider of 3 cars, I'm not sure. Maybe he's struggling in. Michael Frost has found his way past Andrew Hoffman. David Ice is trailing somewhere at the back. I can't find Vernon.
He's still running. He's about 38 seconds down from the leader.
He's in the pits, that's why.
Ah, okay.
He must have boxed the car, I didn't see that. Apologies, Vernon.
George had a bit of a wiggle on Tony Corner there.
Yep, he did. Little one.
And Gary Croft continues to keep Steve LaValle in back of him.
George took a big bite out of that corner as he came onto the start finish.
Yeah, Johnny's now 2 seconds away. So barring a mistake, I think he's going to run away. Possibly Tony is looking at defending against George. Maybe that's what's letting Johnny run away. I'm not sure.
We're just a little bit past halfway here.
Cheers, Bell.
But George is looking at 10 points with Kloosterman written on it.
Yeah.
I've not seen George's car too out of shape, to be honest. So I don't know what. It sounds silly, but I don't know what he's waiting for. And you'd expect someone who's like really wanting the position to be showing some behaviours of that. But he's dropped right off the back of Tony there.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe let's look at driver psyche. Maybe it's he knows he can't catch Johnny, and he's saving a bit of tyre for the last 5 minutes to put the pressure on Tony. You know what Tony's like. You've just seen it there. He's nearly gone sideways. He's giving it 100% on every lap. And maybe George is just backing up and, seeing if he can get Tony to use all his tyres up and make an easier pass on him towards the end of the race.
Or maybe he's spotting Tony locking up and drifting wide and making little mini mistakes and hoping that a bigger mistake comes and he won't have to even try.
Yeah, and I suppose, with what's at stake and the small gap in points, it's not one of those occasions that you really want to stick your nose in where it's not wanted if you're George.
True enough. Just for the record, Steve's now caught Gary Croft. Steve Lavallee has caught Gary Croft. He's showing his nose at most corners at the moment. Might be disadvantaging him, to be honest. But he's taking a wide, sweeping corner.
Yeah, I've watched him the last few laps, and Gary's getting a little squiggly, so I think that's why Steve smells the blood.
It might be that NQR setup.
Yeah, sorry. Could be. No, that's all right.
Might be that NQR setup is naturally twitchy, and they maybe need to stabilise that before race 2 if they've got time.
George just had a sideways moment as well out of the last corner, so maybe he's starting to push now.
Well, he's going to run out of laps soon, right?
We've still got a way to go yet.
7.5 minutes, roughly.
Cheers, Bell.
Yeah, Johnny's pulled out a almost 2 3/4 second lead right now over Tony.
And he looks smooth and calm with it. It's
oh yeah.
It's worrying, isn't it?
Yeah, and then he gets in an interview and he'll tell you that he didn't have pace.
Yeah, it's like the kid at school who said, "I never revised for that exam." Yeah, whatever,
yeah.
son.
Yeah,
you're gonna get an A, aren't you?
Exactly.
The gap between Tony and George seems to have equalised at the moment.
Yeah, interestingly, Michael Frost is now behind Andrew Hoffman, and I didn't see it, so I don't know whether Sam's got any footage of that. Brilliant. Yeah, I've just found it actually on the replay. He got his tyres too much on the grass and has ended up fishtailing his car. He's managed to hold it. It was a brilliant catch, actually. But he did let Hoffman through.
George is really going for it now, guys.
Right, I'll find that. Just one sec. Got to get back to base.
Here comes the move. Oh, he nearly loses it under braking. Tony's fighting him round the outside and keeps the position.
Yeah, Tony says, not that easy, George.
He's obviously been working Tony out for a few laps, hasn't he? And decided that's where he's going to do it.
Yeah, I think he got a bit of a toe, and then took not a totally different line, but slightly different line to Tony round the last corner and managed to get a run on it.
Yeah, the start of that started almost an entire lap before. So he closed under braking into Tony's nemesis corner, and then was slowly chipping away at it for ages, and then, as you saw, stuffed it up the inside of it.
Working on it again. Here he comes. Nope, not this time. Sorry, Pete.
No, go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, on the previous lap, that last corner, he took a hell of a lot tighter. He's having another go now.
Just showing his nose there. He's not actually trying anything. He's trying to get a decent drive out of heat. And has failed to do so.
Yeah, when George got up alongside him around that corner, Tony stole a lot of the corner, and George really didn't have any place to exit. That's the problem. That's why he didn't.
He gets him under brakes there, doesn't he? But he's pointing the wrong way to get any drive out of this one.
Yeah. Okay, a little under 4 minutes to go. A little more than 3.5 minutes to go.
I'm guessing Johnny's like 52 minutes down the road.
Yeah, 4.4 seconds at the end of the last lap.
Yeah, it's about the same. The action really is at George at the moment.
Yeah, George is falling off just a little bit.
Steve Lavallee did catch Gary Croft, but he stayed at exactly the same distance.
Yep.
Justin's driving all on his own, as is Lane now. Ronald drifted back from Lane after catching him quite significantly. Vernon never did rejoin the race. He's still boxed.
So as it stands, barring any incident points, Johnny will extend his lead over George to 41 points. But bear in mind, that means George will be starting in front of Johnny for race 2.
True enough. What's the point situation if he did manage to do Tony on one of these corners?
I think there's 10 points per position with the top 3. So,
Okay.
like I say, at the moment, he's scoring 20 points less. If he got past Tony, it would be 10 points less.
Yep.
It's worth a fortune to him, really, then, isn't it?
Yeah, 31 would be much nicer than 41 with 2 to go. Hey, you never know.
I guess George is just hoping that Tony fights Johnny as hard as he's been fighting George.
True. Steve Lavallee is lining up Gary, just as a point of interest, or he was. He's now backed out of that. It's very close again now, though. You've got to say that the position that George is in right now is as competitive as he's been. Tony's locked up again. This is his chance now, I think. This is definitely his chance now.
Wow.
A decent toe down this portion of the track. If he can get the toe, that is. And he might be able to stuff the car on the inside.
He's got to give it a go. It's very, very hard to go up the inside of somebody there.
I had everything clenched then.
Got that right.
Those last corners were just too fast to do a manoeuvre through, really, weren't they? You wanted to be on that last corner inside Tony. If you...
Yeah, I think Tony's positioning his car well. He's going into that first corner in the middle of the track, which forces George up the inside, which means he loses all purchase coming out. He needs, if he's going to go up the inside, you need the other car to stay right on the outside so you can claim the middle ground and improve your exit.
Definitely, and as you were talking, the line that Tony took into one of those corners, and the one he's doing now, I mean, that's crazy blocking.
Yeah, that looked a little severe right there.
It did. That was blocking in the braking zone, which might get some raised eyebrow.
I believe this might be the last lap.
Which, well, George's car.
One more, Sam is saying.
Okay.
This is going to be an interesting lap for these two. I'll just see what's going on behind, just in case. Steve's still pressuring Gary, and is poking his nose out, probably where it's not wanted. Is he going to try and go around the outside again? No,
he's going to try for that different exit line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Behind everybody's pretty much uniform. Johnny Brandon's in a different postcode. Sorry, zip code for you, Bill.
Johnny's 6 seconds down the road at the moment.
I think if it's going to happen, it's going to have to happen in this corner, funnily enough. It's the slowest one that they encounter,
Yeah,
and
this is
he's
a
just
tough
never
one.
there. Although, no, he's not going to do it, is he? No, he's not going around the outside of there.
He's trying to crisscross.
He is trying to crisscross. He's going to have to be sharp
on the-
round here, and he's
on the
locked up,
outside.
unfortunately.
Yeah, there's not a lot of grip around the outside there.
Did pretty well, actually. Wow.
He's got a lot of drive here, mind.
Sure does. Look at that.
And bad things are happening under his car.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, so race 1 winner Johnny Brandon, second place Tony Kloosterman, and third George McClay. Really good race, that, guys, I thought. Anyway, once Johnny got away and it was down to Tony and George, I think George tried everything possible to get past Tony, but in the end just came short.
Yeah, there was, even though there wasn't a great deal of overtaking, it was very, very tense. And you could see the intention from people. Arguably, George may have left it too late to try. You could easily argue that because he laid right back for the first few laps. Maybe the first few laps is the time to get Tony when his tyres are cold. Maybe George left it too long. But Johnny, masterful, really.
Absolutely. That's the most I've seen Tony Kloosterman run defense in my life. Oh my God, he was on defense the whole race.
Yeah, he certainly was. So we're going to love you and leave you for 10 minutes, people. I'm going to get the scores updated. Join us again, I say, in about 10 minutes' time for race 2 and the penultimate race of the season. Catch you soon. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Racetech V8 ESC Sprint Series and the penultimate round of the season. I'm joined in the booth again by Mr. Pete Bingham, who is eating a curry, so we'll make sure we keep him talking. Evening, Pete.
Yep, evening. Thanks, Clyde.
And also, we're back with us is Mr. Bill Switzer. Evening, Bill.
Good evening, Clyde. Good evening, Pete and Sam. Thank you very much. Glad to be back.
Sam is still being quiet in the background. So we've just watched race one, win for Johnny Brandon, and his title contender George McClay coming home in third. I told everybody a pack of lies and said there was 10 points between each position, and there wasn't. There was 5. So I can tell you now that Johnny got 10 points over George, as neither of those drivers got any incident points. So with 2 races to go, George trails Johnny by 31 points. But George will be starting in front of Johnny in this race. So, Pete, what's going to happen in this one? Get your crystal balls out.
I think this particular race is going to be the conservative race. I think everybody's going to be very, very cautious not to lose points. To the point where I don't think they're going to overtake at all. I think the following race is going to be the one where everybody puts it all against the wall and says, right, am I...
Okay, so, Bill, assuming and presuming that the top 3 make it to the front for any particular reason, if they finish in the starting, if they finish where they are in front of each other on the track at the start, so George wins, Tony second, Johnny third, status quo is resumed and it's all on for race 3? Or do you think Johnny will be doing everything he can to finish 1 place behind George, or even in front?
Well, that's a very good question. I'm not quite sure, but I can tell you that Johnny is a competitor, even though he acts like he's not. He's a true competitor, and I think he's going to try as hard as he can. However, I don't think he's going to do anything foolish to get ahead of George. He's got a pretty good cushion right now, and depending how they finish in this race, is going to put him back up front again in the third race. That's like Pete said. I think that's when you're going to see the gloves are going to come off. I think George has to make a few moves to try to get ahead of these guys to pick up a little bit of to cut into Johnny's lead. But it remains to be seen. I can tell you that it ought to be pretty interesting. But I agree with Pete. I think the third race is going to be the gloves off, no holes barred event.
So it could really come down in this race then to who gets by the traffic better, do you think, Pete?
Yeah, and I think the traffic, in inverted commas, are going to be very, very conscious of the fact that they could very much upset what happens in race 3. I mean, consider it. Johnny Brandon gets wiped out on his way through the pack. What happens then? Is that the end of the league? Does that mean that George has got it? Does that mean there's points available in race 3 for them to duke it out for even more of a tight race? We've got Lane O'Connor doing drifts around the corner at the moment, just in case you're not watching that. Somebody needs to tell him this is the last event of the season.
Don't try this at home.
That was hilarious. And I think we're gridding, so I'm going to shut up.
Yeah, we certainly are. Cars are starting to take the grid. They're all on fairly quickly.
Okay, we got Byrne and Wiley up front, and it looks like David. I don't have his last name. Ease, is it? I'm sorry, David Ease.
Something like that. Yeah,
Ooh, bit of a jump there from Ronald. And green. Interesting to see if Ronald gets black flag for that. George is up the inside.
Whoa.
Somebody's over the grass. I don't know who that is. Is that David?
Yeah, it is.
I think he was just trying to get out of the way, to be
Yeah,
honest.
I think he may have done that on purpose. Johnny is in front of Tony.
They're duking it out for the lead. Oh,
Still.
Michael, what's he done? There's a lot of damage to Michael's car. That was unnecessary, possibly. Ronald has now taken the lead, even though he might have a penalty. Lane way offline, loses a couple of places there.
Yeah, George up into second.
And George is way down the track, I reckon. Is George in first now? Yes, he is.
Yes, he is.
Oh, there's a huge crash behind.
There is. See
Looked like
that? Yeah.
Andrew Hoffman, and I believe it was Justin Rebello, I believe.
Tony's got his boot lid missing, so he's been in some sort of action.
So the buffer between Johnny and George is Gary Croft this time.
Yep.
You won't want to be the meat in that sandwich, would you?
Did Ronald pull into the pits for a penalty?
He did. He's done a
'Cause
drive.
he was leading, weren't he?
Actually, I think he reset his car to the pit lane. Andrew Hoffman out in the gravel. He's going to reset his vehicle, I think.
Okay, I'm going to concentrate on the Johnny and Gary battle.
Yeah,
at the
you do
moment.
that, and I'll update. Just interrupt me if you need to. Michael Frost has got quite a lot of damage to the left and front of his car, but he's still circulating. Might want to box that for a spare car, free repair. Vernon looks untouched at the minute, staying out of trouble. And Tony's missing his boot lid. I think that's affecting his speed. He needs to box as well somehow. I don't know how that works in a sprint race, to be honest. Lane seems to be drifting backwards through the pack. He's probably going to have a go at me later for that. He's behind Steve
Just seen
LaValle.
somebody go off with green wheels in the background.
Yeah, Lane is stopped on the side of I can't tell exactly where he is.
Lane's having trouble. There's something going on there because he was dropping back fast.
He's
Sorry,
in
Bill.
the pits. He's in the pits now. Yep.
So Johnny's going to try to tight line on Gary, but Gary's got it covered.
He's all over the back of him like a bad rash.
There goes. Coming down the inside. Gary's holding well. Whoa.
Very wide there, Gary.
Oh, that
was
net code.
Net code.
Huge amount of net code.
That wasn't.
No, that was just I want to get through. Yeah, that was a massive amount of net code. Johnny's not very happy, but he doesn't realise it's not net code. George McClay's busy fishtailing his way around a corner in first position.
George McClay at the moment has about a 2-second lead.
Yeah,
funny feeling.
As they come over the line. Just over 5 seconds.
5 seconds now, yeah, wow.
So George just needs to drive smart. Providing he hasn't got any incidents coming through the pack, he'll pick up 10 bonus points, which I'm pretty sure Johnny lost with that net code, and then
even if he didn't lose it. Yeah, even if he didn't lose it with the net code, he did when he shoved him around the corner.
So at the moment, we're probably looking at a net 5-point gain for George.
Cheers,
Okay.
Sam.
Sam has just confirmed that George currently has no incident points. So Tony's in fourth with half his car missing. Currently behind Steve LaValle, who's running tail gunner for Johnny Brandon.
Yeah, he'll have a wide car, won't he?
Yeah, it'd be very interesting if Tony can get past Steve and see if he can chase down Johnny.
I think without a boot lid, he's going to struggle, because where else do you get downforce on this car?
Yeah, I know what you're saying, Pete, but he's still pushing Steve around the track.
He is, yeah. It's just bizarre, isn't it? The skill level that these guys have got.
And I think also the physics on the car as well doesn't help, does it?
No, it's true. Be interesting to see what the new model looks like, of course. I'm sure we'll discuss that at great length in the podcasts. When's the next podcast?
The next podcast will be Monday. It was due to be last Monday, but Mr. Boozin was off on holiday, sunning himself somewhere, so we had to cancel it till this Monday.
It's a bit rude, isn't it? So, all the viewers, podcast on Monday to discuss this and anything that comes from the new tyre model on the new cars that are to be introduced and are now officially going to be introduced.
I'm pretty sure we'll have a talk about them now that they've released some pictures and the Ford against Holden battle resumes with, some people liking the Ford, some people liking the Holden, and some people just never change.
Yeah, Johnny was less than enthusiastic about the prospect of introducing new cars, wasn't he? But I think that might change with the tyre model. I think the tyre model is more impactive than the cars, it seems, to the top end driver. Yeah,
I'd like to think that a new car gives a level playing field for everybody, but the cream rises to the top usually. There may be a few adjustments for, some people might just take to it like a duck does to water, and hopefully some of the faster guys might not take to the tyre model, and it might take them a bit of a while to get going, but we'll see next year.
Yeah, we will. Did someone say that Johnny had... Oh, no, it's not Johnny, is it? Of course. It's George. George has got the massive...
Yeah, George's lead is still just over 5 seconds. George, 0 incident points. Johnny has got just the 1, we believe. But that 1 takes away his 10-point bonus.
Yeah, Tony's now driving with nobody in front of him. Oh, there was a massive bit of... Oh, he's gone again. Tony's saying that Steve's disappearing, and he's just vanished off my screen. There is nothing quite as distracting as racing behind someone who keeps vanishing, and
It's horrible, isn't it?
So Tony's got round him now because Steve didn't know where his car was, I think.
Yeah, I can see Steve now. I don't think Tony's got enough time to track Johnny down now, unfortunately. That could have been a good battle.
Yeah, and I don't think Johnny's got enough laps left in the race to be able to pull that gap down on George.
No, and I'm sure George is just driving within himself. Obviously, I don't think he'll know that Johnny's had an incident with Gary unless he's got one of his teammates running as a spotter to let him know. But George will be more concerned about A, getting the win, and B, making sure he doesn't get any off tracks to claim the bonus point.
I think he will know about the incident because Johnny was having a pop at Gary. When the incident happened, I don't think Johnny realised that it was netcode, and it was like a full 3 feet of netcode as well. It was.
Yeah, that was a biggie, that one.
Sam, it'll be worth, if you can, showing the viewers how much netcode was involved in that, because I mean I was viewing it from the chopper, and it was just a massive amount of gap between the.
Yeah, especially as Johnny doesn't believe in netcode as well.
He doesn't, does he? He's hilarious when it comes to that. He's so funny with that.
So, last lap, Sam?
Still what?
Just make sure you're on your toes.
Brilliant. Cheers, mate.
So let's see what Johnny's got the gap down to now. 4.5 seconds. So he's getting 0.2, 0.3 a lap, but he's not going to get to George in time.
Pretty impressive. Michael Frost is in 5th place. Good for him.
Yeah, that's a great run from Mike.
Yeah, good effort. His car looks like it's been to the wreckers, but he's still managing to get it round.
His car just matches the driver now then.
I mean, Steve LaValle, he's in 4th place. He's duking it out with Tony Klusterman. If it wasn't for his net code, he might still be in front of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think Steve's given up on Tony either. Be interesting to see if Tony made any tweaks to the car, but we see that one particular corner that he was having lots of trouble with. So, you know, although George couldn't get past him, you know, Tony is, you know, as good as Tony is, he does make the occasional mistake, and if he makes the mistake whilst he's in front of you, then, you know, there's a position gained. You just got to be in that position to take advantage of it.
Yeah, totally right. For information, Johnny's just done his fastest lap of the race. I'm not sure. I'm not sure why. He's not going to make up 5 seconds unless he's got some sort of rocket attached to his car.
It could be psychological, you know. George watching the relative screen, seeing Johnny take time out of him, you know, could put a little bit of pressure on him, might force him to do an off track and lose his bonus points. You know. I don't think Johnny will ever give up, whatever the gap is, to the car in front, and however little time he's got left, because you just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, we've got an overtake. I think that's Andrew Hoffman overtaking. Oh no, it's not. He's unlapping himself from David.
Yeah, Johnny Brandon's picked up 3/4 of a second on the lead, so he's trying hard.
Yeah, he's in the low 56s, high 55s at the minute, which is a bit more than George. Not astronomical, but.
I see what you mean about Mike's car. It is distinctly second-hand.
Yeah. It's got a humour value, hasn't it? You look at it and think that's going to take more than teacup.
But he's still running, like you say, 5th place. He's got 3 seconds on David Eyes. 15 seconds behind Steve LaValle, so I don't think he's going to get any further forward without a mistake. But it'll be a very, very, very good result for Mike if he can keep it there.
I'll tell you what, Steve LaValle, given his connection issues, he's sticking with or driving a little bit faster on certain laps than Tony Klusterman. That might come together towards the very end.
I think Mike is either better with a damaged car, or, as we were saying about the physics, the damage, although it looks horrendous, isn't really having much effect on the car.
No, you're right. I've driven a car that's had bits missing off it, and it felt. I know what you're going to say after this, so it felt to me, ooh, that's a big getaway from Vernon. Vernon got right out of the way of George just then. It felt like it drove better with the damage.
Where was this said race where you obviously crashed?
I am not telling you. I am not telling you, because in the podcasts, in at least 3 weeks, I've been brutalised for it.
I'm just, off the top of my head, let's pluck a track Bathurst?
Might have been Bathurst, yeah, it might have been. Look, it felt good, right? And then it didn't.
It felt that good you crashed again.
That's correct, yes.
8 weeks practice I put in for that race.
I know. No, you didn't. Vernon's just got out of the way of Johnny in good order. He stayed well clear of him. He's got no bonnet now as well. I don't know when Vernon lost his bonnet, but
yeah, Johnny's still eking into that gap. He's got it down to 3.6 seconds now, with about 4 minutes to run. So maybe 5 laps, possibly 6.
Well, I think George is going to be seeing him before the end of the race. Oh, he can already see him.
yeah, he'll be able to already see him now. But he's not got Harry Potter's wand, does he? So it'll take George to have an incident of some.
Yeah, I can't see Johnny taking 0.6 of a second per lap out of it. How are those incident points looking, Sam? Is George still on 0?
Wow. Good for him.
So, if it was
I've
end...
I've got Johnny showing 5 at the minute, but I might be
if it was
corrected.
going to end like this, the gap going into the final race will be 16 points.
Well, that's quite tasty, isn't it? Because how many positions are we talking there? That's a gap of 4 places, right?
4 places, but, you've got to take into account the incidents as well.
That's true.
Really true, yeah. Actually, yeah.
Johnny's got it down to about 3 seconds now.
Looking at George, though, he's not pushing the corners.
No.
I think like Clyde said earlier, he's driving within his capability.
Yep.
He has been handed a gap here. Let's not be silly about it. He's been given an opportunity to pull that gap out, and he's main.
Exactly.
Yeah, considering George's first 6 laps, 5 laps are in the 55s, and then he's steadily doing 56s now. See what it is this time. 2.9.
Tony's approaching the back of Vernon's car, but Vernon's been very, very accommodating of the front runners in his previous encounter.
And Tony's still not getting away from Steve.
He's not, is he? Steve's lurking behind him.
Yeah, Vernon's got some extra cooling on his car.
It's called additional air conditioning. I fully recommend that for any future iRace.
Have you lost your bonnet before then, Pete?
Once or twice. Might have been in a different postcode when I finished the race, but everybody needs a very efficient pit crew, yeah? I need to give them some training.
And a very efficient teammate for team races.
Yeah, let's not talk about
that. Just looking at the back of Tony's car, and he's got an NQR logo on the back, but now it looks like NQR.
Yeah, it does. It's proper mangled, isn't it?
Okay, Johnny picked up another 10th, but what do we got? Last lap, Sam, or one more to go after? Okay.
Okay, let's follow George round.
Well, Johnny can obviously see him because I'm riding in car with Johnny at the minute.
Yeah.
Must be very, very
2.7 seconds. Final lap.
In this car, it's 2.7 seconds is a bit of an eternity for these top runners, and
It's about a week to us.
yeah. Tony's car, the rear of it is handling like a pig, but for obvious reasons. Steve Lavalle's brought him back into his tractor beam again.
So George round the sweeping right hand. One kink to go.
Coming down the stretch.
And there we go.
He's got
Race
it.
2 win for George McClay. Second place, Johnny Brandon.
Look at this. Fight to the finish. Tony
Third place, just in front of Steve Lavalle, was Tony Kloosterman. Mike Frost comes round the sweeping right, round the final right-hand kink, and a fantastic result for Mike Frost in 5th.
Yep, Andrew Hoffman not too far behind him, actually.
Yeah, I think he's a lap down.
But he's a lap down. He's in 10th. So we've got Justin Rebello, who's approaching the big sweeping right-hander that you were talking about before. A bit further back round the...
Okay, so there we have it, folks. A win for George McClay and a second place for Johnny Brandon. Unfortunately, the net code and the bump afterwards should mean that Johnny doesn't score any bonus points. We believe George didn't get any incident points, so we're looking probably at a 15-point gain there for George, which should leave us with a 16-point final race difference. Pete, not a lot happened in that race, although the Gary and Johnny incident could prove to be decisive.
I disagree with you. I think a lot happened in that race. The lot being George McClay beat Johnny and had a clean race. Johnny couldn't have a clean race because of some net code. If that becomes the defining factor, then that's going to be really disappointing for Johnny. Race 3 has it all to play for. Race 3 is going to be the ticker tape race that I predicted at the beginning of the last race.
Yeah, most certainly. So both you and Bill called it. You know, the last race is obviously going to be the most important race. So, folks, we'll update you with the scores as soon as we get back. We'll be off air for about 10 minutes, getting the session set up. Join us again then for the season finale, and we will be able to crown a winner at the end of it. Catch you all soon. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, cats and dogs, aliens, anybody else that's watching the final round of the Racetech V8 ESC Sprint Series. So this is where it happens. We have the narrowest of point margins at the top. Johnny Brandon currently leading George McClay by 16 points. Johnny is also having PC issues. His computer has crashed, although I have just seen he's joined the session, so hopefully everything is okay with about a minute to go. In the booth with me again is Mr. Pete Bingham. Good evening again.
Evening again, Clyde.
And evening again to Mr. Bill Switzer.
Evening again. Glad to be back.
And Sam is still on the wheels of steel and still keeping quiet for us. Quickly, guys, because we've only got about 40 seconds before we start. Bill, what's going to happen?
It's going to be no holes barred. It's going to be full war on this.
And Pete, what do you think is going to happen?
I think elbows are going to be well and truly out. There's only 16 points gap. That's 4 positions, 3 in some incidents, or 2 in some incidents, hard to tell. And I think this is going to be absolutely riveting. Don't move away from this channel.
And who's your money on, Pete?
I am going to go with George, because I think Johnny's going to come unstuck with Tony somehow. I don't know. I'm going to go for controversy.
Bill, who's your money on?
I think Johnny Brandon's going to nail it.
Okay, well, all I know is it's going to be a Ford or a Holden that takes away the title, and the cars are gritty. Lights are on. We got Lane O'Connor starting from pole position. I believe Gary Croft will be joining him. And interestingly enough, obviously coming first and second in the last race, the 2 title contenders both start next to each other on the back row of the grid.
I don't know where to look.
No, nor do I.
Could be some hurt feelings in this race.
I'm going to have a look at George, I believe, just to see if he can get the jump on Johnny. Revs are rising. And it's green, green, green on the final round. Here we go. Big slider from Andrew Hoffman there.
Lane O'Connor got a great start.
Gary Croft is pit lane starting.
Yeah, Johnny Brandon is in front of George McClay at the moment.
Vernon's
off the track.
Sorry.
Nah, I think I jumped on you. Sorry, Pete.
Oh, it's all good, mate.
Ooh, big wiggle there from Johnny. George tries to cross over. He's not going to get it done here.
Ronald Moons has taken, I think, the lead of the race.
Ooh, I don't know who the yellow car is, but they just got a tap, but saved it.
Good on the yellow car. Johnny Brandon is now behind David Ice, and George McClay is right behind Johnny. The yellow car was just in. Steve LaValle behind him. Michael Frost kind of offline and going a lot slower than everyone else, as is Andrew Hoffman.
Oh, and there's an accident between Johnny Brandon and I don't know who the 333 is. David Ice.
Oh boy. Johnny's got damage. He's missing a wing.
George is past David. That there, folks, could have been the title decider. Let's see what Johnny can do now.
Just re-watching it. Johnny really did stuff his car down the inside, it has to be said. and David turned in on him. I think there was a bit of rush. I think it's like what we said before. This last race, everything at stake. He's now an eon behind where he needs to be.
Yeah, and assuming, again, George has got no incident points and finishes with no incident points, that puts him 6 points behind Johnny. So Johnny really needs to finish behind George to win the championship.
Yeah, just to confirm, Johnny McClay? He doesn't exist. George McClay does, and he's got 0. Ronald Moons is his next target. So I'm guessing, based on the logic you've just stated, the more that George takes more positions in the race, the harder Johnny's job is going to.
Yeah, so as it stands with incident points, I presume Johnny got something from that. That gives Johnny a 6 point gap. Now, third place is 140 points.
I'm a little surprised at Johnny pushing the issue so early. I mean, he has a cushion to begin with, so that kind of baffles my mind.
I might regret this in terms of a relationship with Johnny, but I think he was doing a desperate.
I'm sorry, you cut yourself off. What'd you say, Pete?
Sorry, mate. I do that a lot with this button. I said I might end up losing some friendly relations with Johnny, but I see that as him doing a desperate lunge at that point underneath David Ice.
I'm sure we'll get Johnny's version of events at the end of the race, but it's not over yet.
No, it isn't.
Like I say, 140 points for George if he comes home in third. And all the way down to 10th, there's 5 points per position. So Johnny's target now is to finish 1 place behind George to win the championship.
Johnny is currently in 6th, and his teammate Steve LaValle is about 2 seconds ahead of him. I don't think Steve will put up too much of a fight.
No, I'm sure Steve will play the team game. And interestingly, George has got Ronald Moons in front of him, so it's quite possible that George is going to make Johnny's task another position harder.
Yeah, Ronald's coming towards him. Behind George in that Metallica liveried car is Justin Rebello. So it depends really on how quick Johnny can sort out Steve, his teammate, and then.
I'm sure Johnny's doing the maths in his head, and I think as well, I don't know, from my position, if I was sitting in Johnny's shoes or Johnny's race boots or Johnny's socks, whatever he races in, I think it's a lot easier now because I know exactly what I've got to do. Finish behind George.
Yeah. And George is about to do Ronald. I think he has actually done him now. And there's some bloke called Tony Kloosterman out in front at the minute winning this race, but who cares about that?
Johnny has gotten by Steve LaValle.
Has he really?
Yes, he has.
I think there was a multi-21 somewhere in that equation.
So, as things stand, George McClay wins the championship. Johnny Brandon needs to catch and pass 2 more cars.
Okay, we're coming up on 12 minutes remaining, so he's still got time.
Yeah, not even halfway through yet, so plenty of time. No rash decisions to be made at the moment.
Henry Hoffman did a little bit of gardening just on that last turn and put himself in the clutches of David Ice.
So Tony Kloosterman in front has a 4-second lead over George. So not convinced, and unless Tony makes a mistake, I'm not convinced George has got any more positions to make up. whereas Johnny is just over a second behind his next target.
And I don't know about you two, but I see Johnny Brandon gaining on the two in front of him, hand over fist. He is absolutely gunning.
He's definitely catching him. He's got damage on his car. The bonnet or the hood for our American cousins is crinkled. Front left wing is missing, but it doesn't seem to be slowing his pace down any. But Johnny's got some decisions to make soon. He needs to get past these two cars. He's got plenty of time to do it. So, he doesn't need to rush into anything.
Yeah, but he had plenty of time at the beginning to take his time around David Ice, and he didn't. There's the fateful turn right there.
May not be easy. These guys are up.
Yeah, I think that the other thing that's not going to help Johnny at the moment is Justin and Ronald are racing. So
exactly, and they're very close. Whoa!
Oh, that's a nudge. He's pushed him.
He has, but
he's let him go though. He's let him go. He's such a good racer, Johnny. Do you reckon Johnny's got his abacus out or not?
Yeah, I think if we ask Johnny, he'll say no.
Right.
But I think Johnny knows exactly what's going on in the championship. If he's not working it out for himself, somebody else is telling him what's going on.
So, just for everybody, including me, because I'm not the brightest bulb in the shop, if Johnny overtakes Ronald, he will win the championship.
That's what we think, yes. So Ronald Moons at the moment is Kingmaker.
Yes. Is that even with the fact that Johnny's got 2 incident points and George is going to have a clean race if he stays as he is?
Yes.
Interesting. So what Johnny does when he reaches Mr. Moons?
If Johnny passes Ronald and all drivers finish in those positions with no further incident points, Johnny Brandon takes the championship by 1 point.
Wow. I'll tell you, Ronald's putting up a hell of a battle, I'll tell you.
He's doing a good job of racing, that's for sure.
He sure is.
Although, look at the gap that Johnny took out of that then.
Yeah, all on the brakes.
All of it.
Look at that.
It is awe-inspiring, isn't it? Damaged car, and he just hoovers up the space in front of him. Little plug for a vacuum cleaning company there. Don't do it, Johnny.
He's going for it now.
He is. This is it.
This looks like the move.
Where's he off? Oh.
Yeah, I think Ronald was kind to him then. So, George McClay, can you do anything about Tony?
Tony's five some seconds down the road too.
It'd be ridiculous if Tony parked the car just so that this could be reversed.
No, he's not going to do that.
No, he's not that boy, is he?
No way.
Leon O'Connor's left the race.
So here's an option for George. Slow down. Let Johnny catch him. Back Johnny into the cars behind him. Something may happen.
We discussed this a few seasons ago, if you remember. The same thing happened in the main league, and I actually think that was attempted, and it fell on its face. So I don't think that's going to happen twice.
No, but I think the trouble is, and again, it depends on whether the drivers have got the information as to where they stand in the championship. As things stand, George can't win it because he's not catching Tony. his only option is for somebody to overtake Johnny.
Or Johnny have a big mishap.
Sorry, I've just remembered when it was that we had that incident, and it was in the Clio Cup that we used to race with Arnie Schoenblier. I can't remember his name now. Do you remember him?
Yeah.
He was amazing, and that was the situation in that race, and it didn't work. So these guys won't know anything about that. So maybe he will do the math. Maybe he has got his abacus out on his dash.
You know, isn't it amazing when you ride along with Johnny in car with him and you watch what he does and you say, he's not doing anything a heck of a lot different than I'm doing, but why does he go so much damn faster?
I do that on every single race.
Yep.
I always do a lap with inside the car with Johnny and one with Tony, and I think I'm doing exactly what you're doing. So how the hell are you 2.5 seconds?
Exactly.
And I must admit, I do exactly the same thing with George, because George is one of the smoothest drivers I've ever seen. And yeah, you know, if I brake in the places that these guys brake, I you know, just carry on straight, and it's that grip hack.
Yeah,
exactly.
Totally.
So Johnny is currently 3.1 seconds behind George. I don't know what I would do in Johnny's shoes. I think I would just manage the gap to fourth. Or I don't know. Yeah, it's a risk, isn't it? You know, Tony throws it off the circuit or something, and all of a sudden everything changes. If Johnny catches George, then you know, I don't know. Still too many questions to be answered with 5 minutes left to go.
Well, we've still got Tony, who's got to lap traffic yet. His first victim on the lapping front is going to be Vernon Wiley, who's just on cue, just got a corner. But anything could happen at that point, right? I've been overtaken by Tony, who's been a bit forceful at times, and has bumped me. But you're going to blame me for that, right? Because that's what you do. And it's going to be in a few minutes, if not a few seconds, looking at the screen that I'm staring at.
No, I'll back you up there, Pete. I've been in that situation as well. Not just with Tony, but with a lot of the front runners who I'm not going to upset anybody tonight. So anyway, here we go. 1 point in it. 4 minutes to go.
I think George is going to stay safe. He's going to stick himself in a bubble of time, equally distant between Tony and Johnny. And just hope something happens to Tony, because that's what I'd be doing. There's nothing else in the game now, right? He's not got a rocket.
Yeah, but if something happens to Tony and he's out, it's not really going to change it any. Tony's got to be between the two of them, right?
Yeah, this is true.
What about this for a conspiracy theory?
Go on.
Johnny catches George. George has an on-purpose whoopsie moment, and Johnny goes past him, and then George gets the opportunity to turn him.
I don't know George as well as you do. What would George do? Is he the must-win sort of?
I don't think he is. No, but it's it would be a good talking point for the podcast.
It would. Well, Tony's safely past Vernon.
I'm hearing on the grapevine as well that Mr. Michael Ndoka might be back next season.
Really?
So, Fitzstein Motorsports. Oh, Johnny had a big one.
Yes, he did.
Fitzstein Motorsports are going to have a very strong team with George and Harold and the returning Michael Ndoka.
That'll be proper tasty. And what about I've forgotten his name. It's gone out of my head. The one that has a battery-powered car.
Mike Taliancic.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Mike will do a full season again because of the time difference, but he does show up for a few races.
Talk about somebody smooth. You ever ride with him?
Honestly, I
My
just,
good.
it's just unbelievable.
Looks like he's taking a tour of the race course. That's the good.
Johnny is pushing.
He's not picking up a lot of time on George, I'll tell you.
He's not, but he's having. Yeah, yeah, exactly. He's losing it under his eagerness, and he doesn't need to. But that means that he's just not been able to calculate it.
Well, I think Johnny wants to be right on his tail when it ends. Or I don't think he'd mind passing him either if he could.
So George is facing Vernon next, I think, very shortly. It's pretty tasty back here with Ronald, Steve Lavalli, and Justin Robello. Now they've all spent a lot of time this race concertinaing up and getting it.
They're
Yeah,
all within a second of each other, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think Justin's losing his traction now, so that might end up being a bit interesting. In a is that what happened? No, it's good that they get some footage in this. I know we've been chirping on about these nobodies, you know, George and Johnny. George has successfully traversed the Vernon Wiley potential disaster zone.
Yeah, don't forget there's also some other random driver leading the race.
One or two laps
who's
to
that
go?
then?
Last lap, Sam, or one more? Thank you.
So Johnny's coming up to lap Vernon. Vernon moves out the way nearly smoothly.
Vernon.
Then I think
Left
did
a
he
bit.
lose?
There was no touching, but there may have been some gardening.
So on to the final lap.
I think
Tony Kloosterman.
Yeah, he's well ahead. He's got his boot lid this time.
I don't know if it's just my screen, but it doesn't seem as dark here as some of the other sunset races.
Not as dark.
No, I'd agree with that actually.
Still have a hint of the sun in the sky. It might have gone down, but you can still see the flare or whatever you call it.
Okay, so Tony's coming up to the very last corner, which isn't really a corner, it's just a kink. And there's another win for Mr. Tony Kloosterman.
Well done, Tony.
George McClay comes home in second. And Johnny Brandon, who we believe may have won the championship by 1 point, comes home third.
Well,
however, I will beaver away on my abacus now, whilst Bill and Pete talk about the race.
I don't know what Johnny's on about, but he's saying something at the minute. So Justin Robello ended up fourth. Ronald Moons, good result in fifth. Steve Lavalli in sixth. Andrew Hoffman seventh. David Ice eighth. Michael Frost in ninth. Vernon Wiley very much in the picture in 10th. Lane O'Connor in 11th, but 22 laps down. And Gary Croft, I'm not sure he started 22 laps down. Interesting, Bill, yeah? Absolutely fascinating. Right to the end. A 1 point win for Johnny. Unbelievable.
Well, how else would you want it? You know, that's the way you want it to come down, really. I mean, you know, a guy that's 400 points ahead at the end of the year isn't as exciting as that, even though, like you said, not a lot of passing and, you know, back and forth and stuff, but it was tense, no doubt about it.
It was, and I'm not seeing any donuts or drifts or anything like that. So I'm not sure that they even know that there's a winner.
You might be right. You might be right. Johnny's talking on the air. I've got him muted, but he might be asking somebody. I don't know. He's talking. I can see the.
Well, hopefully neither of the guys know, and we'll get them both in.
I don't think they do.
Yeah.
But Pete and I were just talking about that.
Ronald Moons is reversing down the pit lane, which is also very cool, especially if you're driving inside.
That's right.
He's now parks his car in his own pit box the wrong way around.
Okay, Tony Kluserman is waiting for an interview. I'll drag him in for you guys if you want to give him a grilling.
Awesome.
Tony Klusterman, welcome to the booth.
Hey, Clyde.
Hello. I'm going to leave you in the hands of Bill and Pete because I'm busy trying to work out the points because we think we have a winner by 1 point.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay.
I'm going to hog this one. Tony, were you aware of the point situation at the beginning of the last race?
No idea.
So, here's what we may think has happened. We think that Johnny may have won by 1 point over George. Now, I'm waiting for Clyde to confirm it, and it's all on clean races. If you'd known that, and the feud in inverted commas between you and Johnny over the course of the season, would you have dropped behind George in order to make a George win?
A chance in hell.
Over to you, Bill.
Hey, Pete, what did I tell you? That's exactly. I knew
totally
he would
right.
say that.
No, good race win, Tony.
Thank you.
Very smooth in the last race. You had a bit of trouble in the first race. On one particular corner, you ended up locking up many times. Did you do anything before the second race in order to counter?
Yeah, second race was completely different setup. First race, I cooked the tires there, and I was done for the race. I just could never get them back. I think I over pressurized them right at the very beginning, and I was doing my best to hold George off, and he gave me a hell of a fight.
Yeah, you were head and shoulders above him by the end of the race, that's for certain. In the second race, you were sans boot, which you should get because at least half of your country speak French. Did that affect your traction out of the corners in any way?
Yeah, I don't know. That happened so early in the race that I didn't even know I actually had any damage. And to be honest, I didn't even feel the hit. I saw the 4X, as in the iRacing chat box, but I was just trying to avoid. I can't even think of who it was. Justin and Andrew, I think.
Yeah, it was those two actually. It's between me and Bill, we kind of called it, which was that race 2 would have been a more reserved, conservative race for the title contenders, and race 3 would have been a bit more dramatic. And from one particular racer, it was, and he may well have still won the championship. Have you got any messages out for Johnny and George while he's still in the booth?
No, just it's been a pleasure racing with those guys all year. For the most part, I'd say real good, hard, fair racing, and look forward to next week.
Brilliant. Bill, any questions for Tony?
Pretty much covered it all. I got to say to the boss there is he did a magnificent job all weekend. Well, not all weekend. Today, the 3 races. The last race, you were absolutely dominant in that race. You were on cruise control. You did a great job. So always a pleasure to watch you guys race.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay, Tony, what we're going to do, as it's the end of the season, we're going to leave you in the booth unless you really need to depart in a hurry.
No.
We're going to drag Johnny and George in and hope they don't know how the season has ended. So let me drag them in.
Pushing.
Evening, guys.
Evening, Johnny. Evening, George.
Evening.
Have you guys had your abacuses out, and do you know who's won?
I think I've done it by a point.
I'm hoping he's wrong.
Well, we can confirm that Johnny has won the championship by a solitary point.
Sorry,
Wow.
George.
Congratulations, Johnny. I was going to go to George first. George, that was a hell of a meeting. 26 points. Got it down to 16 points before that last race. At one point, Johnny had a bit of contact with another car. You were sitting pretty, and then we sort of worked it out that if you managed to stay incident free, Johnny would have to finish one place behind you to claim the championship by a solitary point, and that's what he did. So, sort of commiserations on the championship, but also congratulations on a fantastic final evening, and also a fantastic championship for yourself, and pushing Johnny all the way. And like I say, just finishing that solitary point behind him.
I had well done, Johnny. To start with, that was it was a good championship.
Well done to you.
The goal was tonight, obviously, to try and keep the times ones to pretty much zero, and to try and obviously get as good as I can. The race one, I started a bit slow, and then Tony made a couple of errors, and I got in behind Tony, and I was like, if I could just get by Tony here, but I wasn't wanting to take a times one to get by him, so I ended up just finishing in third place there. But race two, that first lap, it just kind of opened up, and I got all the luck went my way. And then I kept on looking in my relative, and Johnny was just slowly catching me every lap. And I was like, if he gets down to like below a second stuff, I'll just take the times ones and go for it. But managed to hold that one off as well. Well, obviously race 3 there as well. It was kind of when Johnny had contact with the car in front. I was kind of laughing a wee bit. Sorry, Johnny. But then he did. I saw him coming back up through the field, and I was trying to figure out in my head who was going to win. But obviously, I've just lost it by a point.
Yeah, if you were to win a trophy tonight, George, I'd be saying that you'd won the safest, smoothest driver award, because of the three of you in the booth now that we're racing tonight. You managed to avoid virtually everything. You look smooth and in control the entire.
Yeah, amazing, incident-free, George. I tell you, I think that's impossible, but you did it. That was really well done.
I know it was actually quite hard because it's so easy to get a times one round here, so I was kind of taking it a bit easier than I normally would to try and make sure I would get the 0Xs.
And it nearly did it for you, mate. So
yeah, really, you played that one right.
So, George, again, commiserations. It was a single solitary point. I'm not sure how much you'll look back and digest this season, but there'll obviously be a race somewhere that you can say, well, if I'd have just finished one place higher, the championship was mine. But, what ifs and maybes. So, we want you to stick around while we talk to Johnny, but before we let you slink into the background, is there anybody you'd like to thank?
Well, obviously, first of all, I'd like to thank Tony for the setup that he provided, because I've been running his setup all evening. I've not even changed the tyre pressures for any of the races.
Controversial.
And obviously, Texan Fitstyle Motorsport for the help with the gears and that as well, and you guys for the broadcasting, obviously.
Yeah, and like I say, well done on your second place in the championship, George. Stick around in the booth if you want. If you need to get away, then we understand. Johnny Brandon, sprint season champion by 1 point. But that aside, the more important thing is Tony's helping George with setups. What's going on?
And he's helped me as well. I've used the Racetech setups the last 2 races as well. Not tonight, the last 2 rounds.
Excellent, only a bit of fun. So, yeah, Johnny, 1 point in it at the end. George has pushed you all the way, had a better meeting than you tonight. But, you know, overall, I think you had 11 wins in the season. And, you know, you've had a lot of fun in this series. You know, congratulations from me. I'm sure the other guys are going to congratulate you as well. Was it... how did tonight go for you? You must have been fuming at points. There was, I remember, a big netcode issue that you had with Gary Croft. I know you don't like that word, but if you watch the broadcast back, you'll see there was about 3 foot between you. And then the incident in the last race. So, you know, everything was going against you tonight. And George, with his perfect 3 clean races, but you've come in here, you know you won by a point, so you're either a very good mathematician or somebody's whispering in your ear.
Yeah, I got like, I knew what was going on in that last race. I knew where I needed to finish, should I say. I didn't really know what was going on. And just before the final race, my steering wheel did its usual thing and failed to configure. So I had to jump out, restart the PC, let it do its updates, I made it in by, I think the grid was already on. So by the time I got into the room. So I was slightly flustered. Did a couple of dodgy moves in that last race. I think David Ells, I thought he went wide and saw me coming. And it was a late one from me up the inside, and he turned in. I clocked him. That one was on me. So sorry, David. And then I tapped Justin Rebello as well. Just caught the rear end, which I backed off and waited for him. But then he backed off and waited for me at the same time. And then I backed off and waited for it. And then he backed off and waited for me still. So yeah, I've apologised to Justin as well. So a bit of a messy race, that last one. Yeah, and race 2, that was unfortunate. That's different, you know. If it was netcode, but I think it would have happened anyway, even if there wasn't netcode, from the way Gary was turning in. And yeah, very hard to get past people if they're just prepared to take the 1Xs and carry the momentum through the previous corners. So you had to try something. But yeah, it was a little bit frustrating because, but it made it close, made it exciting.
Are you aware that all of your incidents were in 2 corners that were?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, both of them. So, like I say, the one with Gary, that was. All the others were my fault. The one with Gary, I don't think it was. I think I had to try something, and there was no way he was going to let me have the space.
You need to get some new glasses, Mr. Brandon.
Okay. Thanks for the message, Tony. Appreciate that.
Yeah, not often I join one side of an argument, but I think when you watch the replay, you'll think maybe.
I looked on both, and he's taken the off tracks in the previous corners to carry the momentum. You know, you can't. I don't think that's fair. So it doesn't really matter what happened in the corner because I should have been up much further up by him anyway. But if you're prepared to take the off tracks to carry the speed, then. And as I say, without the netcode, I think it would have happened anyway. So.
Okay, so what are you going to do with your trophy?
Are there trophies?
Unfortunately, it's another naked cardboard cutout of me for the winner.
Oh, lovely.
Just to add to your collection.
Clyde, you need to be careful. Too many people are going to want to join the league if that's what...
You've just scarred Johnny for life, Clyde.
Hey, if anyone wants one, I'm going to be putting them on eBay.
To scare children.
So, Johnny, like I say, congratulations on winning the championship, and congratulations to both you and George for making it so exciting for all of us, commentating and watching. 33 races and a winner by 1 point. So, Johnny, anybody you'd like to thank?
Just you guys for putting on the league and doing the broadcast for this one. I know this one's a bit of practice, bit of fun. Not quite the main series, but still nice to win it. How it turned out in the end. Thank everyone at XVR, for all the help and the fun we have as a unit, which is what it's all about. Yeah, it's slightly tainted with some things going on in the background here, but it's all good. On to the next week.
Indeed. Now, before we let anybody go, we've got Tony in here. We've talked to him about his racing tonight, and Tony's finished third in the championship. So, that's nothing to be scoffed at. But, Tony, we'll hand over to you. Is there anything you want to ask Johnny or George? Little tips, secrets on how you can get closer to them?
I'm going to have to jump out, guys. I'll be back in a bit. Sorry. Good night.
No. I think they both drove great races in the two races that they won, and a lot of it has to do with just where you are on the grid and how that first lap makes out. So, it was a good day overall. Everybody got a win. Everybody got a second. Everybody got a third, I think. So pretty even all around.
Anybody you want to shout out to, Tony? Obviously, Chris Jackson, one of your teammates, had his birthday. What was he, 50 or something? I don't really remember what the number was now.
The number was 40, and yes, I think he's still celebrating. They had a big surprise party for him last night, which was nice, and hopefully he's sober enough to race next weekend.
Cool.
Yeah, and just to finish that little Chris celebration off, happy 40th, Chris, from all of us in the league, and you're still a twat. So, guys, we come to the end of the series. We've crowned a champion by 1 point. I think it was a lot of fun. We didn't have the cars that we expected. We was hoping that people were going to take it up as a learning series for the main series. But, even with the small grids, I think we've had some absolutely fantastic racing throughout the season, at the front, in the middle, and at the back. I'm sure you two will agree.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been great fun. There's been quite a lot of interesting racing, and you can see some of the patterns that transfer through to the feature race weekends. And it's just been really good. If it doesn't carry on, then we'll just focus on the main feature race and make that brilliant.
I think the thing I like is the fact that for the whole season, 33 races would come down to 1 point separation. That's incredible. You can't write a script like that. I think that's wonderful. And to see the battle with Tony and Johnny and George every week is amazing. It's just amazing. And we're very fortunate to have a respectful league, like I mentioned on the broadcast. We're very fortunate. We've got a good bunch of guys, and hopefully it'll continue on. Maybe we'll get a few more bodies in there. And congratulations to the first three guys, first, second, and third, finishing in the sprint series, and looking forward to next week for the regular series.
Yeah, most definitely. So, as usual, it's up to me to close the broadcast. So, I'd just like to finish by saying congratulations to Johnny, George, and Tony, the top three in the championship. Don't forget to join us, or join Apex Racing TV next weekend, where we have the finale of the main series. Again, we have 3 super sprint races from the Silverstone National Circuit. Johnny Brandon goes into it with a slightly healthier lead, but anything can happen. It usually does, especially in the super sprint races. I'd like to thank Bill and Pete, my co-commentators for most of the season. Mr. Sam Boozin for running everything in the background and keeping us all on an even keel. To all the drivers that's taken part, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something from it, and you had some fun along the way. And lastly, a big thanks to our sponsor, Racetech. We're really, really pleased to be involved with them. And hopefully that partnership carries on for a few years to come. So, all there is left to say is good night. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll see you in a week's time for the finale of the main series. Good night, everybody.
Night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.